It was a day like any other at JFK Airport, until a moment of confrontation made everyone stop and stare. What happened next shocked everyone. Passengers were rushing by, announcements echoed overhead, and the hum of activity filled the terminal. But amid the usual rush, a sudden ripple of curiosity swept through the terminal. A new figure entered the scene, tall, poised, and undeniably striking. One hand rested casually in his coat pocket, the other clutching his overcoat. His blonde hair seemed to catch the light as he walked, his presence commanding subtle attention. Behind him, a small team of personal security created a quiet perimeter, their eyes scanning the bustling crowd. To those he passed, it became clear this wasn't just any traveller. Something about him stood out, not just his confidence, but the bright red cap perched on his head. The cap caught the eyes of onlookers, sparking murmurs that spread like wildfire. A child stumbled and fell near his feet, and without hesitation, the figure crouched down, helping the boy up with a warm smile. The moment was disarming, almost surreal, given the figure's unmistakable identity. Then it happened. The murmurs turned to whispers. The words MAGA on the cap became clear. And as realization dawned, the name on everyone's lips was clear: Barron Trump. As Barron Trump stepped into the check-in line, he cast a quiet glance around him. The crowd's whispers followed him like shadows, their gazes lingering just a moment too long. It wasn't admiration that filled the air, but something more cautious, even wary. The atmosphere bristled with an unspoken tension, heavy and expectant, like the calm before a storm. Barron had felt this weight before, the sharp edge of being watched, judged, but even he couldn't have predicted how quickly it would escalate this time. A ripple of subtle reactions coursed through the crowd, amplifying the unease. A woman clutched her handbag a little tighter, her eyes flicking between Barron and his security. Two airport workers paused mid-conversation, their gazes fixed on the red cap. Nearby, a child tugged on their father's sleeve, pointing toward Barron with wide-eyed curiosity. Each gesture, small yet deliberate, added to the thickening tension in the air. Not far from him, a young man stood stiffly, his shoulders slumped under the invisible burden of defeat. Alex, a software designer, radiated exhaustion. His pale, weary face told a story of sleepless nights and relentless worry. Beside him were his wife and two children, their suitcases scattered haphazardly at their feet. The children clung to their mother, their tear-streaked faces buried in her coat as muffled cries broke the airport's dull hum. The children's quiet sobs spoke volumes. They didn't want to leave. But Alex's face, etched with frustration and sadness, showed a man with no choice. His reddened eyes darted between the departure screen and his family, as if searching for an alternative that didn't exist. Every part of him wanted to believe this was just a temporary setback, but deep down, he couldn't shake the gnawing sense of failure that clung to him like a shadow. Memories of his former boss's biting words echoed in his mind. "You're not cut out for this. Maybe you never were." For weeks, he had tried to make sense of it all. The long nights poring over job applications, the countless rejections, the mounting bills. Each failure chipped away at his belief in the promise of hard work. He'd done everything right, or so he thought, only to see it all fall apart. So why did it feel like he was being punished for playing by the rules? A flash of red caught his eye, pulling him out of his thoughts. The hat, bright, bold, and defiant against the sea of muted colors in the terminal. Its presence irritated him in a way he couldn't fully explain, as if it had been placed there just to mock his struggles. The words weren't yet visible, but Alex didn't need to read them to feel the weight of what they represented. It was a reminder of a world that seemed to reward power and bravado while leaving ordinary people like him to deal with the fallout. His chest tightened as he grappled with the flood of emotions: anger, helplessness, shame. Part of him knew his frustrations weren't entirely fair, but that did little to quiet the voice in his head demanding someone to blame. It was easier to fixate on the hat, the symbol, than to confront the nagging fear that his failures might truly be his own. Little did either of them know that their paths were about to cross in a way that would forever alter the course of that ordinary morning at JFK Airport. It was pure resentment for anyone wearing that red cap. Alex had tried to suppress it for a long time, but the cries of his children and the weight of the injustices he'd endured finally broke through. With frustration etched across his face, he strode toward Barron Trump, pushing past startled travelers. His wife ran after him, panic in her voice. "Wait, Alex, think before you do anything," she pleaded. But Alex, fueled by desperation, was beyond reason. Asps echoed through the terminal. A man instinctively pulled his young daughter closer, while others edged away, unsure of what would happen next. Phones appeared in hands, their cameras capturing the escalating scene. He stopped in front of Barron, grabbed his arm, and shouted, "You and this cap have taken everything from me." Alex's voice broke through the silence, a mix of anger and disbelief. "That hat, do you even get what it stands for? You wear it like a symbol of power, but all it's done is divide. People like you don't fight for a place, you just take. You're blind to the harm it causes to people like me, crushed under that rhetoric. How can you wear it, pretending it means nothing?" Barron's security reacted swiftly, pushing Alex back. The crowd stirred with a mix of curiosity and unease, whispers rippling through the terminal. A voice called out, "You've got no courage!" The shout was distant and anonymous, yet it seemed to intensify the moment. But Barron, now a young man of surprising composure, extended a hand to Alex, helping him up from where he had stumbled. The gesture stunned the crowd, phones rising instinctively to capture the moment. When the security team moved to intervene again, Barron raised a steady hand, stopping them. "I've got this," he said calmly. Turning to Alex, he added, "Please, speak your mind." Barron's invitation for Alex to speak caught the crowd off guard. There was an audible shift in the air, a momentary hush as people processed the unexpected kindness in Barron's gesture. As Alex's voice trembled with anger and emotion, the reactions from the crowd started to shift. A woman in the front row uncrossed her arms, her expression shifting from stern to contemplative. Her eyes softened as she listened, taking in the sincerity in Barron's response. Nearby, a teenager, previously dismissive, smiled faintly. It was subtle, but the faint curve of his lips showed that Barron's calm, controlled manner had made a quiet impact on him. A man in the back of the crowd squinted slightly, his posture straightening. He seemed to be reassessing his judgment of Barron, his lips, which had been set in a tight line, relaxing just a little. The murmurs of the crowd, once filled with skepticism, now carried a softer undertone, curiosity, even respect. It was as if the tension in the terminal had been replaced by something more human, more thoughtful. Alex didn't hold back. His voice trembled with anger as he vented his frustrations. "You and your family's rhetoric have ruined everything. People like you talk about making America great, but all I've seen is my dreams collapse under the weight of your so-called greatness." As Alex's words grew sharper, Barron's chest tightened. He'd been here before, at the center of blame he didn't always deserve. The sting of being misunderstood was familiar, but he'd learned to rise above it. Instead of reacting, he drew on the quiet confidence shaped by years of public scrutiny. "This isn't about me," he reminded himself. "It's about something deeper." Alex's wife stepped forward, her voice gentle but firm. "I'm sorry, sir. He's been going through a lot," she said, her tone apologetic as her hand lightly rested on Alex's arm. The measured response caught the crowd off guard. Conversations started in hushed tones. "Is he really Donald Trump's son?" someone whispered. "He doesn't seem so bad," another replied. To Alex, however, Barron was not a person. He was a symbol of everything Alex had lost. Shaking free of his wife's grasp, Alex looked directly at Barron, tears welling in his eyes. "Why? Why are you even wearing that cap?" As Barron reached out, his own memories flickered to the surface, times when the world's scrutiny had felt suffocating. Placing a steady hand on Alex's shoulder, he met his gaze. "I can't undo what's happened to you," he said softly, his tone measured yet sincere. "But I understand the pain of being misunderstood." Alex let out a bitter laugh. "Understand? Do you even know what it feels like to be demeaned? To lose everything you've worked for? People like you, with your wealth and your privilege, have no idea what people like me go through." His voice cracked as frustration and sorrow intertwined. Barron stood quietly, absorbing Alex's words. For a moment, he felt the weight of the crowd's expectations pressing down on him, a familiar yet unwelcome sensation. His mother's voice echoed in his mind. "Stay calm." Composure is strength. Taking a slow breath, he reminded himself that in moments like these, actions often speak louder than words. Meeting Alex's gaze, Barron's voice was steady, yet tinged with a vulnerability that caught the crowd off guard. "You're wrong to think I haven't felt pain," he said, his tone calm but firm. "I know what it's like to be sidelined." The words hung in the air, unexpected and strangely profound. A man in the crowd, an Asian traveller, muttered aloud, "Sidelined." "Him?" His companion shrugged. "Maybe he has gone through something we don't know about." Barron turned toward the man and replied, his voice steady but empathetic. "I understand where you're coming from, but this cap doesn't stand for what you think it does." The man froze, caught off guard by the direct response. Alex interjected, his frustration mounting. "Then what does it mean? How can you claim to make America great when people like me lose everything?" The question resonated with the crowd, a shared sentiment rippling through the terminal. Barron didn't flinch, though he felt the familiar sting of judgment in Alex's words. His resolve firmed, rooted in a belief he'd held tightly despite years of skepticism. "This cap," he began, his voice steady, "isn't about division. It's a symbol of what I hope for, a nation that finds strength in unity, not in conflict." His words silenced the crowd, the room captivated by the maturity of someone so young. Alex hesitated, his anger softening into something closer to reflection. "They've taken everything from me," he murmured. Barron leaned in slightly. "Have they taken your freedom? If not, then why let fear and frustration take your dreams? Go back, face what scares you, and take your life back. Don't let anyone, yourself included, stand in the way." The terminal erupted in quiet applause, a murmur of admiration sweeping through the onlookers. The Asian man whispered, "I've never seen anyone handle a moment like this so calmly. If people like him are leading, maybe there's hope after all." Barron's response wasn't just a turning point for those present. It's a reflection of how a single moment of kindness can ripple outward, touching more lives than we can imagine. This wasn't the only time Barron's actions have made waves. In another remarkable moment, Barron's unexpected act of kindness went viral, inspiring a group of students and igniting a chain reaction of positivity. Want to see how one small gesture sparked a movement of kindness? Click here to watch the full story and see how Barron's impact continues to grow. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more inspiring stories that show the power of kindness, unity, and grace.